Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. As you all know, I'm Richa, a second year engineer at Mansfield, and today I'm here with my friend Arunima.
Hi, I'm Arunima. I'm a first year lawyer at St. Catherine's College.
Yeah, so today we're just going to give you a brief overview of the application process for law. So to start off with, can you tell us your background? Where did you go for high school?
So I studied, I'm an international student, and I studied in Mumbai, India, at this school called Oberoi International School, which doesn't actually have a lot of, doesn't have any other students at Oxbridge actually. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to help out those people who come in without knowing anyone at the university.
Yeah. So the first thing, of course, is your UCAS application. And how far back did you decide that Oxford would be one of the options there?
So I thought of Oxford quite a while back, but never thought I'd be able to get in, which is why I didn't research it any further and just stopped it when it had started. And then about 3 days before I submitted my UCAS application, I sat down with my father showing him my entire application, and he goes, "Your IGCSE scores seem decent. Why don't you try applying for Oxford?" And we had about like a 1 hour discussion about it before he finally managed to convince me to apply. And so, yeah, it was basically 3 days before I submitted my application that I applied to Oxford.
I'm so glad he managed to convince you. And when you were submitting your application, was it an open application or did you apply to a college?
So I gave an open application. Obviously, it was 3 days before, so I felt like I didn't have enough time to research all the colleges and make a good decision. But yeah, also at the same time, I feel like things worked out really well for me because I ended up at a college I really like. But yeah, I can't say how things work out for everyone in general because it's a very impartial algorithm is what I've heard. So.
Yeah, that's true. And the personal statement is the part which varies a lot from subject to subject. Mm-hmm. So what tips do you have for the law personal statement?
So when I sat down to do my personal statement, I was just staring at a blank page for about 2 days. Every time I sat down going like, my first line has to blow them away. Like if I don't get this right, I'm done. So yeah, I wasted quite a bit of time just not knowing how to start. And so my biggest tip would be start somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's a good beginning, just start writing something. And as you go further, you'll realize what the big theme is you're trying to bring forward. And once you figure that out, that you can make a brilliant opening line with that particular theme you've picked up on. So first things first, just go for it and then come back and fix the things you don't like about it. But make sure you start somewhere. The second thing was a lot of people have skill sets and experiences which they think don't connect to their degree. So I did a lot of music and I used to do a lot of Bharatanatyam, which is a dance form in India, back home. And I didn't particularly expect that to help my law application whatsoever. But the way I worked around that was I sort of isolated skills from both those things. So for example, for dancing, I used to go up on stage a lot and perform in front of large crowds. So I brought out that skill from dancing and connected it to the skill of advocacy that you need in law and made that connection. And so by making connections like that between what you have done and what you hope to do at university, you can actually incorporate all these amazing things you've done in school, which you think you won't be able to mention.
That's actually a brilliant tip. So after you submit your application, the next step is your entrance exam, right? So can you talk a bit about the law entrance exam?
So the law entrance exam is called the Law National Admissions Test, or the LNAT. And Oxbridge does require it, as well as a couple of other universities. But you can definitely find a completely separate university that doesn't look at LNAT at all. For the LNAT, I did find a book that was sort of helpful because it showed me how it's going to look when I go into the actual examination. But it's not a very predictable test format. They try to come up with more unique questions with each exam you give. And there's also an essay element at the end of it, which again is very different as the years go on. And so I personally didn't find it particularly helpful in that sense. Like I couldn't see any patterns or isolate anything like that. So
That's
that
more
was
your quick thinking.
exactly like on the day if you walk in confident and ready to give this exam. And for me, one thing that did help was reading a couple of newspaper articles before and staying updated with current events. Because in the actual paper, I could sort of my reasoning sort of followed what used to happen in those in those newspaper articles. And even in my essay, I could make references to a lot of modern events while I was trying to make a point. And so I found that really helpful. But just walking in with like confidence really helps, because if you have sound reasoning as to why you come to a conclusion, it's probably going to be right. So, and that works for both MCQs and the essays. But yeah.
So where did you write this test? Did you write it in India, Mumbai itself?
Yeah, so I was lucky because there's a Pearson View Center in Mumbai, which was about like a 30-minute drive from where I stay. So I didn't have to fly out or anything.
Yeah, that's
kind of drove down to the center. Yeah.
So then what's the timeline like? Like what are the rough dates for the test and then the interview?
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's a very important element because there are a set number of dates for the LNAT, and there are very few that occur before the Oxbridge deadline. So make sure you sign up for one that's before the Oxbridge deadline, because most of them will be concentrated post Oxbridge deadline for the general application deadline. My deadline was October 15th and the exam I gave was on October 13th. So it was quite close to the actual deadline.
How did you feel your LNAT
went? I feel like because of the sort of the nature of the LNAT, I would say.
Very subjective.
It's exactly, yeah. It's very open-ended and you can sort of gauge how you've done in the MCQs. Although it wouldn't be an accurate representation, you can just sort of guess based on what you think could have been a possible correct answer. But yeah, it's all just guesses. I don't think there's any particular way you can say, okay, yeah, that I got right, that I got wrong. And the essay plays a huge role, and that's completely subjective. Like the essays go to the colleges you've applied to, and they get to decide if they like the way you put forward your opinions or not. And yeah, so I didn't feel particularly like underconfident or overconfident when I came out. All I knew was I'd done the best I could for that exam, and like I could just hope for things to work out. Yeah,
just doing your best.
Yeah.
So the next thing is the interview. So did you fly in or did you choose to do a Skype interview?
So I ended up flying in to Oxford. Again, initially I had to discuss it with my dad. I really wanted to stay back, and he said it would be a better idea to fly in and do it in person. And now in hindsight, I do agree, because I think me as a person, I'm a lot more like I speak through body language and things as much as I do through my voice. And that would have that would have really impacted my interview if I would have just done it online. So that really helped.
Right? So how long did you stay here?
So it was about 3 days. They said you have to stay for those 3 days, although you may not have interviews on all 3 days. But the good part is they do give you free food and accommodation when you're here. So we had to pay for transport and then like getting here, and then my dad had to rent out his own accommodation. But I had a chance to like eat in hall, live in the actual accommodation that I live in now, and sort of feel like what it is to be a college student while I was staying here.
Yeah, I guess that experience is very invaluable to even figure out if Oxford is right for you.
Exactly, and I truly believe that in the entire application process, the university is evaluating you as much as you're evaluating the university. And a lot of people forget that. They just get really stressed out about the university. Will they pick me? Will they not? But just realizing that you're picking them as well is really important, because at the end of the day, like you're going to have to live here for the next 3 to 4 years, depending on how long your degree is. And if you go over there, change everything about you to fit in, you're just not going to enjoy or cope with the 3 or 4 years you're spending here.
Yeah,
so I think that's important. Yeah.
So how did your actual interview go?
So the way the law interviews are conducted is you get a case study, which you're supposed to like look at for about 20 minutes before the actual interview. And you don't have like a question or anything on the page. You just have that case. I had 2 types of case studies. The first one was scenarios, and then like a statute. And I just had to figure out what I wanted to do with these 2 materials. And the second one was a judgment from an actual case. So they just give you those documents and you have to figure out what to do. And you get about 20 minutes. Ideally, you'd be picking up some arguments, applying the statute to the scenarios given, or in the judgment, picking up on the small details the judge talks about, and like focusing that onto the broader principle that's conveyed. And so you get 20 minutes to do that, then you go in for the interview. And the first one I had, which was with the scenarios and the statute, they began with like a generic question, like what do you value the most in general, or just some ambiguous question to find out about your character. So that bit is relatively easy because that's how most interviews go in general. But after they ask you that question, they usually transition into the case study they give you, and you sort of converse with them and engage with them about the material and what you've noticed, and they sort of give these small insights that they have of the material itself. And it's basically organized like a tutorial because that's what you do in a tutorial as well. So you get to see what it's like in an actual tutorial. So that was the first interview. The second interview was a bit trickier because you may have heard of this, but sometimes they try to mess around with you to see how you react in those situations. Yeah. And so in my second interview, I walked in and one of the interviewers just sat to my right and watched me while I spoke the entire time. And I just conversed with the other one. Like I didn't have any conversation with the person who was just sitting there watching me. So they try to put you out of your element, try to see how you handle different ideas, different arguments, things like that. But at the end of the day, if you really run into a dead end or you really messed up something, they do try to help you get out of it. So for example, in my second case study, I confused first appeal with second appeal, which was very consequential if you would know the case study. And it was about 5 minutes into the interview when I realized I confused the two. And obviously I realized because the tutor had realized I confused the two. And instead of pushing me down for it or making me feel really nervous about it, he sort of just explained things to me, tried to guide me out of this dead end I'd reached, and tried to get me to come up with opinions on the spot and see if those could work with this new fact I found out. And he sort of pulled out the answer from me in a certain way, which again happens a lot in tutorials as well.
I guess basically they just want to see if you work in the tutorial system at Oxford because it's very unique to the university and they want to see if you can thrive in it.
Yeah, I think that is perfectly said. It's essentially what they do.
And what was the social life during that time?
So I actually really enjoyed my time when I came down for the interviews. Maybe it's just my college, but everyone was amazingly friendly. Before both my interviews, I had long conversations with the student representatives who were helping interviewees figure out what to do. So they were really welcoming. The community in general at CATS is really lovely. So I had a lot of fun. The first people you see at CATS when you walk in are the porters because that's where you collect your keys. And I had the most loveliest conversations with them. They're really funny, really comical. And the one thing I clearly remember is one of our porters, Steve, he, when I was leaving, when I gave him back my key, he just smiled at me and went oh no, it's too bad you're leaving. I guess I'll just see you next October.
This is Arunima's peak social life.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that meant the world to me, even though he didn't realize it. Because to me, it was if he believes I'm supposed to be here, I will be here. But no, that was lovely. One thing I should mention is before interviews, I did feel there were two kinds of people who'd been invited. One kind who felt like they were really lucky to be there and really just excited and hoping that things work out. And obviously quite nervous as well, simultaneously. And CATS is filled with a lot of people like that, to be fair. I fit into that particular category. I was just very surprised I was there. And CATS is filled with a lot of those people. But there was also another group of people who sort of came from schools. I think they were private schools. I don't want to make any stereotypes or judgments. But who came from schools where they sort of grown up with understanding how Oxbridge works and what the interview is like and how the system goes about doing things. And so they seemed just in their conversations a lot more prepared with what they were going to say at the interview level. They sort of brought books along with them. And these weren't just like general books of interest. They were like the theory and practices of like criminal law statute and like really in-depth stuff, like the theory of jurisprudence or stuff like that. And I mean, yeah, it's a bit daunting when you're about to go into an interview because you definitely feel underprepared if you come from a background like mine or just anyone who doesn't think, like who thinks they've gotten lucky. And then you see someone who's come with these books that's like second year portion in the actual degree, reading it, going to talk about it in the interview, and you're like, I don't even know what the English legal system is like. How am I going to talk about the actual law? But yeah, I think it's important to decide whether that does stress you out or not, and then maybe move away from people like that or stay with them, just because it can really impact the way you approach your interview. I mean, I feel like if I would have stayed there even a bit longer, just in their conversation, I would have definitely walked into that interview like nervous and jittery and unsure about my opinions, thinking nothing I was going to say was actually going to make sense. So yeah, be wary of that.
And my last and final question to you is how you prepared for the interview?
So the school that I come from, as I said, we don't have any other Oxbridge graduates. Like a friend of mine and I were the first ones to come to Oxbridge. So we didn't have a lot of awareness about how the system works. And we also didn't have a lot of resources or people who can give us some insight into how it works. But I was lucky because it was an international school, so they did still have some resources for general interviews that universities from an international background would do. And my college counselor managed to organize a sort of mock interview where they told me about how I could work on like my posture, body language, the way I speak during the interview. So just those elements, like the visual elements of the interview, like the visual cues, I was able to improve that a bit because of that one mock interview I had. But the organization of the interview itself was nothing like the actual version.
The questions were very different.
Like, yeah, completely different. Like, mine did not have a case study. I was asked about, like, a baby tied to a bomb and what would I do? Which is not how the actual thing goes. But no, I think that definitely helped. And then there are a couple of YouTube videos online you could try watching, and they should give you a bit of insight.
This
and
one.
Then, yeah, this one. And then, yeah, definitely if anyone out there wants to know more about the interview thing particularly, then I can come back and help out. But yeah, hopefully videos like this will help people out with things like that.
So I guess that's all for today. Thank you so much for your valuable insights, and it's been so much fun having you here. And if you have any more questions which we didn't cover right now, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you're a prospective applicant, as always, good luck, and we hope to see you here. So yeah, I guess that's it. Do like, share, and subscribe. See ya!